I never thought a laid-back Sunday ride could spiral into an HOA disaster, but that's exactly what unfolded the day Karen decided my Harley somehow belonged to her son. It began innocently enough. I had parked my bike in my own driveway, shining proudly under the morning sun, freshly polished and waiting for the road. The night before, I'd spent hours detailing it, buffing every chrome edge until it gleamed like liquid silver. What I didn't realize was that Karen, the self-proclaimed queen of our HOA, had been lurking behind her blinds across the street. Plotting her next power move, Karen had a reputation for treating the entire neighborhood like her personal property. And her son? Well, he was infamous for borrowing things without ever returning them. That morning, she strutted across the street with the confidence of someone about to stage a coup, stabbing a finger at my Harley as if she'd just spotted stolen treasure. "That's my son's bike," she barked, loud enough for the whole block to hear, as though repeating it with enough force would make it magically appear in her driveway. I stared at her, caught completely off guard. "No, it's mine," I said evenly, doing my best to keep my voice calm, but calm wasn't in Karen's vocabulary. Drama was her fuel. Within seconds, she escalated from accusations to character assassination, painting me as some kind of neighborhood thief. Then, without missing a beat, she whipped out her phone and dialed 911, claiming I had stolen her son's Harley and demanding police action. Minutes later, the quiet street turned into the set of a crime drama. Sirens wailed. Police cruisers rolled up, lights flashing, neighbors peeking out of windows. One officer approached with a notepad, visibly trying to figure out what on earth was going on. "This is my bike," I explained steadily. "Registered, insured, and licensed in my name." Karen, of course, doubled down. Her performance was worthy of an award, arms flailing, voice breaking, retelling her story like it was a tragic opera. If it weren't so infuriating, it would have been almost funny. But there was one thing Karen didn't know. Not the cops, not even the neighbors knew it yet. Earlier that same morning, I'd taken my Harley out to pick up my brother. And my brother wasn't just any passenger. He happened to be the state attorney for our district, a man who knew the law like the back of his hand. He had ridden shotgun with me for hours, making him the ultimate first-hand witness. So while Karen launched her one-woman crusade, I simply stood there with a small smirk. She was digging her own hole, and she didn't even realize how deep it went. The officers glanced between us, uncertain, caught between Karen's flailing arms and my steady calm. I repeated my point and handed them my paperwork. Registration, VIN, insurance, license, all of it perfectly aligned. One officer nodded as he checked the documents. Then he turned toward Karen, whose fiery confidence faltered for the first time. But backing down gracefully wasn't her style. "You're lying. That's ours, and I can prove it," she shouted, diving into her purse like she was about to produce damning evidence. The officers exchanged a look that screamed, "Here we go!" Before Karen could unleash her next stunt, I pulled out my phone. "Actually," I said, scrolling quickly, "you might want to hear something firsthand." A few taps later, my brother's voice filled the air through the speaker. Calm, professional, unshakable. "This is the state attorney," he said. "I was with my brother earlier today riding on his Harley. It is his legal property without question." Karen froze. Her jaw slackened, opening and closing like she was trying to summon a rebuttal, but the words simply refused to form. The cops didn't hesitate. They turned to her with a firm but polite warning. Making a false police report was a serious offense. Her cheeks flushed crimson, fury and embarrassment battling on her face. You could almost see the realization dawning, the moment she understood just how badly she'd miscalculated. The standoff in the driveway felt like something out of a movie. Karen, realizing the police weren't buying her act, muttered bitterly about injustice and how nobody valued her protection of her son. The officers exchanged knowing looks, jotted down a few notes, and stepped aside to let the moment settle. I stood by my Harley, the adrenaline fading into quiet satisfaction. The street fell silent except for the low rumble of my bike. I gave it a light rev, the chrome gleaming in the sun like a trophy, a reminder that Karen's grand power trip had just collapsed. But if there was one thing everyone knew about Karen, It was that she didn't accept defeat gracefully. Not ever. And as I watched her retreat across the street, grumbling to herself, I had the sinking feeling this battle wasn't finished. She was already plotting round two. That afternoon, I spotted her pacing her front yard, phone pressed tight to her ear, whispering urgently. Whatever she was cooking up, it wasn't good. Later that evening, I checked the Harley in the garage. At first, everything looked fine. But then I saw it. A thin scratch was etched into the handlebar chrome. Not major damage, but a deliberate mark. Her silent message was clear. This isn't over. I felt equal parts irritated and amused. Karen's antics were predictable, petty, and relentless. Sure enough, the next morning, a certified letter showed up on my porch. HOA letterhead. Karen's signature was stamped all over it. The letter accused me of violating aesthetic guidelines, claiming my Harley was out of compliance and had to be removed immediately. She even tried to argue that parking a motorcycle in a private driveway broke neighborhood rules. I laughed out loud. The HOA had no jurisdiction over legally registered and insured vehicles on private property. It was just another escalation of her personal vendetta. But this time, I decided to go on offense. I started documenting everything. Pictures of the Harley parked neatly in my driveway, timestamps from my ride with the state attorney, a record of her earlier false police report. Every shred of evidence went into a neat folder. My brother reminded me that her behavior was edging into harassment, and that any more false claims could land her in very real legal trouble. That thought alone made me smirk. When the HOA meeting rolled around later that week, Karen arrived, radiating smug self-importance, clearly rehearsed for her big moment. But I had my Harley parked in full view outside, chrome shining, license plate visible, every detail pristine. And I had my brother, the state attorney, seated right beside me, ready in case Karen tried another stunt. As the meeting started, Karen leapt to her feet, practically vibrating with anticipation. "I demand that this motorcycle be removed immediately. It's my son's, and he has every right to it," she shouted, eager for the spotlight. I rose calmly. "Actually," I said, motioning toward my brother, "every claim Karen has made is false. This Harley is legally mine. Here's the evidence." I laid everything on the table: registration, insurance, photos, timestamps. The board leaned forward, hanging onto each detail. Karen's jaw dropped, but I wasn't finished. The state attorney stood and spoke with cool authority. "I personally rode on this Harley with my brother. It is legally his. Any further false claims could be considered harassment and may violate state law." His words hit like a gavel. The room went still. Karen's face drained of color, her practiced confidence crumbling before everyone's eyes. She stammered, searching for a lifeline, but none came. The board members exchanged glances, their sympathy gone. Her credibility evaporated on the spot. By the end of the meeting, the board formally dismissed her complaint and warned her against future false reports. Karen stormed out in a flurry of mutters, her once intimidating presence completely shattered. I, on the other hand, felt nothing but relief and satisfaction. Not only had I protected my Harley, but I had exposed Karen's ridiculous entitlement for the entire neighborhood to see. As I rolled out of the parking lot, the Harley's engine purred like victory itself. Karen's power trip had ended in spectacular failure. The neighborhood now knew the truth. Sometimes, people like her need a hard reality check, and this one was unforgettable. If you enjoyed this HOA saga, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss another crazy neighborhood story. Drop a comment below. What would you do if someone like Karen tried to claim your bike? And if this tale left you laughing, fuming, or just stunned, give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow.